Hi everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. Sean, thanks for telling me my mic was on. I was microwaving, and that's what you probably heard me doing that and clicking on the keyboards. I'm blue today for some reason. The webcam is making me blue. So we watch old 16mm films. This is AV Geeks Lunch. We eat lunch. I'm eating lunch because that's what I was microwaving. And so we got... Wow, I'm just kind of a little scattered right now. So we just watched some home movies. It was a compilation reel that came from a collector whose works we've been scanning, Albert Stagg, who's based in Massachusetts. And he called that... Oh, there we go. See, suddenly... Boop. Oh, no. Now I'm back to... Yeah, this webcam. This is compilation reel that was named Spanking Girl. So you caught the footage of the girl getting spanked. That doesn't normally show up in home movies, but there you go. Let's see, what do we got set up for you? Lots of different things today. But first, let's learn how you can defend yourself against spies. Enjoy.
We got the word on that 307 tonight, Captain.
Oh, that's the mugging on 35th?
Yes, sir. Only now it's a homicide.
Well, what's the story?
We got a pretty good make on two probables.
Oh, that's a break. Good descriptions?
For a change, right down to the color of their eyes.
What's with the case here?
Just coming to that. Looks like the thing started like a routine mugging. Bruises on the victim's neck and all like that. Wallet missing.
What went wrong?
The case was chained to the victim's wrist. You know, the way jewelry salesmen do.
Yeah?
What the lab and photo put together is they tried to shoot the chain off, and the ricochet drill set victim right through the head.
Anything interesting in here?
Nothing but business papers. Victim was in the import-export business. Nothing but business papers until we checked the lining. Then this.
Uh-oh. Looks like we got a federal case here, man.
Attention of the police and federal agencies called into the case, Shift Tech Company, source of the photocopied memorandum.
You're absolutely positive, Bob. No carbon. Okay, I'll keep you posted. Good luck at the meeting. Right. Bye. Ray, I'm really stumped. It's utterly fantastic. You checked my file safe yourself.
Yes, sir. It hasn't been tampered with in any way, and the original memo's still there.
And you and I are the only two people in the plant with a combination.
That's right, sir.
Then how the devil did someone get a chance to take a photograph of the original?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, Mr. Silliman.
Ray, I'll tell you precisely what happened the day Bob wrote me that memo. He wrote it with his own hand. Now, you heard him on the phone. No copies. He came up here, handed it to me with a wink, and left. I read it, jumped for joy, then put it in the file safe myself, and it's been there ever since.
But somewhere along the line, a copy was made.
By me? By Bob? To what purpose? Why make a copy of something that only he and I were aware of? Just doesn't make sense.
I sound like a broken record, but the fact remains a photocopy was made. And this thing's beginning to smell of espionage.
But that's incredible. Absolutely unbelievable.
Incredible? Absolutely unbelievable? Why then the frequent headlines announcing the exposure of this or that spy, sometimes native-born, sometimes a foreigner? What is really incredible is that the public media, magazines, newspapers, broadcasting, reveal 85% of what an enemy might want to know. If the hostile power wants to dig out the information, and the hostile power does, along with a firm determination to get that last 15% too. That part of our defense story not handed out on a silver platter. Here is where there enters the picture that melodramatic figure, the spy or espionage agent, and the tools of his profession. Simple lockpicks, portable X-ray machines, an almost limitless variety of microphones, recorders, transmitters, and receivers. Complex yet tiny. The development of the transistor and micro-miniaturization have worked wonders. A newly developed shotgun mic was to figure importantly in the Gyrotech case. Want to eavesdrop on somebody? Attach a small hidden device and the telephone caller will have an audience he never suspected. Or take the area of photography, motion pictures, still camera, infrared, and microphotography. All available and some small enough to lose inside a pack of cigarettes. You can buy a telescope today that will let you count the freckles on someone's neck a mile or so away. Freckle counting is not the name of the game called espionage, however. Our purpose here, in this case illustration, a composite of several actual security violations, is to make you aware of the improbable, unbelievable devices that can be used against your company and you.
That's incredible. Absolutely unbelievable.
First step when the unauthorized photocopy was discovered. Comparison with the original Gyrotech memorandum. The handwriting on the copy was strangely elongated, as though the picture had been taken at an angle. Using an instrument known as the autofocus rectifier, government technicians can, in effect, flatten out the photocopy. The difference allows the expert to calculate the angle of the original line of sight. Investigators were now able to establish the vantage point from which the photograph was made. A newly established import-export office across the street from Gyrotech. The subleased office was now vacated. The federal security investigators made an inch-by-inch analysis of the premises. Tests were conducted using a telescopic lens known as the Questar. At this distance and position from the Gyrotech plant, it was as though much of what went on inside Gyrotech was exposed to view, a close-up view. With the camera attachment, agents could photograph even the smallest details in a blueprint or document, right through the window of the president's office. With this to go on, federal investigators now narrowed their search to the previous renters of the office space. The trail led to the uncovering of a spy ring financed by a foreign power. Boyd Johnson, American-born, a recently hired electrician, employed by Gyrotech. And Mikhail Tarazik, ostensibly a refugee from Hungary, actually of Albanian origin. In the months prior to the discovery of the spy ring, they had not only used telescopic photography, but had managed to compromise the secrets of the Gyrotech company in a number of other ways. By using a shotgun microphone across a heavily trafficked boulevard, they were able to aim and pick out individual voices, even in a crowded area. Out in the open, conversations of Gyrotech's top scientists and engineers were monitored and recorded. The Gyrotech company had a number of basic research contracts with the state university. Consequently, activities on the campus were of interest to the pair of espionage agents, particularly what went on inside the physics building. One day, there was a visit from a telephone repairman, or, more accurately, a man who represented himself as a telephone repairman. It had been an easy matter to interfere with the telephone drop line outside the building to create a genuine disturbance. It was an easy matter to gain entry to where he wanted to go to. A busy secretary was in no mood to check his credentials. She was delighted to be rid of him so she could get on with her work. Mikhail Tarazik must have felt the same way as he proceeded to, quote, repair, unquote, the professor's line. It was a matter of a few minutes, and the job was done. Satisfying himself that the secretary was not the curious type, Tarazik quickly turned to his next task, wiring the professor's chair for sound. The tiny transmitter, running on power cells, would have an active life of several months and could transmit over a range of a half a mile or more.
Only another year to your doctorate, Carson.
Yes, sir.
And now that Dr. Peabody's retired, you'd like to work with me.
Very much so, sir.
Lasers your specialty, huh?
Electron injector lasers, sir.
What were you and Peabody using chiefly?
Sometimes indium antinomide, mostly gallium arsenide.
And what was your biggest problem?
The cryogenic factors. If only...
Suppose I told you I found a way to lick the problem. No more sub-zero temperatures. We've worked out a method, I believe...
And so, the good professor continued to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and sometimes of masers and lasers too, transmitted to a receiver and voice-activated recorder in the possession of Johnson and Tarazik.
As we go along...
Early one morning at Gyrotech, where Johnson was employed as the building electrician. On this particular day, a carefully worked-out plan took shape. Who better to call about the lighting failure than the building electrician? The foreman assigned the job to Johnson. It was a restricted area where secret work was performed. Johnson, having only a company confidential clearance, was escorted to prevent his access to secret information. So far, everything according to the book. The escort was close at hand. Nearby drafting tables were covered so there would be no violation of security. But for some reason or another, the job did not go as fast as was expected. For every bug or wrinkle uncovered by Johnson, another cropped up. The job would take a couple of days, and so it went. When he entered the second time, then the third, Johnson was an accepted figure in the drafting room. The escort and personnel in the area were a lot more casual now. Why not break away for a smoke now and then? No longer were the drafting tables covered in the area where Johnson worked. Because he was there, everybody assumed he was supposed to be there, and didn't give Johnson's presence a second thought. Under hobbies on his job application form, Johnson had listed only one word, fishing, which was quite honest of Mr. Johnson. Unfortunately, no one had sought to find out if Mr. Johnson was also a highly trained photographer. What appeared to be an ordinary screwdriver contained a small camera. Within seconds, he had a photographic record of plans and specifications that had taken months, even years, to develop. All reduced to tiny microfilm dots, which would be mailed to a drop point in Central Europe. As a journeyman electrician, Johnson was able to accomplish several other jobs, such as using a spike mic and miniature transmitter to record conversations in the adjacent management conference room. One day, a photocopier broke down due to electrical failure. Johnson was summoned. he had the chance to install an automatic miniature camera. Now it would be one copy for the company, one for Johnson's foreign employers. The final assault of Johnson and Tarazik one night. By bypassing the alarm system and picking a lock, they were able to gain access into the plant. Periodically, the guard made his rounds through the premises. They came well equipped for the job. The basic instrument, an X-ray device. The files of the engineering project supervisor had been properly secured. Johnson held the negative X-ray plate against the locking mechanism, while Tarazik went around to the rear of the file with the radioactive element. Radioactive impulses transmitted through the cabinet and the locking device would serve to identify the location of the discs within the locking mechanism. It was a quick matter to develop the X-rays. And an expert like Tarazik now knew the combination. No noise, nothing for a guard to become curious about. The classified files of the engineering project supervisor, carefully replaced by the two men, would make interesting reading for the intelligence agency of a foreign power. And the next morning, the supervisor would not have a clue that his classified file had been rifled. A conscientious guard, but he should have checked the area in which the secret material was stored. The Gyrotech case history represents a composite picture of security violations within a single plant, but each one of these illustrations is based on fact. The trained professional agents like Johnson and Tarazik have many sophisticated tools, against which there is one overriding answer: vigilance, such as using the latest GSA-approved security containers, which protect against the X-ray technique used by Johnson and Tarazik. Open your mind to this basic truth. Half measures are worse than nothing. Security must be all the way. Half measures allowed Johnson to doctor the photocopying machine. All the way means allowing access only to fully authorized servicemen. Half measures allowed the illicit photographing of the work of many key draftsmen. All the way would have meant an escort all the time in the restricted area and classified material covered. Tarazik's style of telephone repair would have been frustrated if more than a quick look had been taken at his company identification card. Just being aware of the sensitivity of long-distance microphones, even out of doors, will cut the chances of eavesdroppers greatly. When you are vulnerable to eavesdropping, that's the time for small talk, not shop talk. A high-powered telephoto lens can pry into your private affairs, but it often can be stopped by vigilance and common sense. A drawn blind, for example, would have ended this case history before it began. If you are working in a defense-related area, your plant must be a strong island of vigilance amid the potential security threats on every side. So, smile or not, but remember, someday, somewhere, you too may be on a kind of candid camera, on the spot in our nation's defense against the spy.
Oh, the Did you see that leader lady at the end there? Let me see if I can bring that back up. That was pretty great. Hold on. Let's see. Pause. There's one at the beginning too, I think. Yeah, I can't bring it up. Oh well. Anyhow, 1967. That seems kind of late. No color, but fascinating film. I love how some of these films are basically just how-tos. You know, like how can I effectively spy on a business? Here's all the different ways we can do it. Pretty hilarious. Excuse me. Okay, so on behind me I got a telecine, so we watch films live, and this one is So Who's Perfect? And this is going to be jarring because we're going to go from 1967 to 1984. So it's going to be the fashions, it's going to be color, it's going to be... The music is really great in this. So this is a management film, and normally I don't like management films, but this one's got a little bit of drama in it, and people getting mad and irritated. So let's watch Who's Perfect?
Are we supposed to get off back there? Now we'll be late for the movie.
Don't worry, the next exit's coming right up. We'll get off there.
Oh.
I guess I wasn't paying much attention this time.
The trouble with you is you never pay attention.
Hey, come on, nobody's perfect.
What are you telling me? Oh, Jeff, I ordered those weeks ago. And we're holding up a big order here, just waiting for your stuff. Listen, Jeff, this isn't the first time you've messed us up. If you guys can't perform, yeah, we'll get another supplier.
How's the layout coming, Betsy?
I finished it. What do you think?
Well, it needs more zip. Do it again.
Hello, I'm Carrie Snodgrass. The scenes we have just seen are familiar to all of us. We've all been criticized. And we've all reacted by feeling angry, defensive, and resentful toward the other person. Sometimes it has been necessary for us to give criticism, but we hesitate. That's because we don't want people feeling angry, defensive, and resentful toward us. We're here with psychologist Dr. Henry Weisinger, who has co-authored the best-selling book, Nobody's Perfect.
Helping people learn to give and receive criticism with results is one of my specialties. My book, Nobody's Perfect, teaches people how to give positive criticism in order to get positive results. We hope this film gives you some insight as well.
First, let's look at some of the traditional ways we give and receive criticism to see what goes wrong. Then we'll examine some ways to make criticism more effective and productive. Dr. Weisinger, can you give us a few examples of the mistakes we frequently make when giving criticism?
One of the most common mistakes that we make when we criticize somebody is that we shame them. When we shame another person, we take a specific behavior and we generalize it into a global behavior. We use words like, you always do this, you never do this. Shaming makes another person want to retaliate and say something negative about us.
Besides never paying attention, you never know where you're going. You're always making us late or getting us lost. Next time, I'll drive.
Oh, yeah?
over my dead body. You know, you're starting to sound just like your mother.
You said something about me, so I'll say something about you. It's obvious that when one person is accusing and the other defending, the substance of the criticism gets lost.
Another common mistake that we make when we give criticism is threats. Threats seldom work, and like blame, provoke retaliation.
If you guys can't perform, yeah, we'll get another supplier. Oh, you people better shape up. Now, I'm tired of having to cover for your last-minute delays. As far as I'm concerned, this just might be your last job with us.
You want to cancel? Go ahead. We can't stop you, but we'll sure sue your company. You better read our contract.
As you can see, threats are unproductive, and they just create more conflict. Now, let's examine one final mistake we often make in giving criticism, what we call faulty feedback.
Faulty feedback occurs when the criticizer is vague. The other person has no real idea about what to change. Faulty feedback encourages excuse-making. It's what we call the yes but response.
It needs more zip. Do it again. And when you do it right this time.
Yes, but when I showed it to you before, you didn't say anything.
Well, give it more oomph. That says it.
Okay, so what does oomph mean? Do you mind explaining that?
I don't have to explain everything. You've been working with me long enough to know what to do when it isn't right.
Yes, but prevents us from acknowledging that there may be areas which really need changing. We've seen a few of the most common mistakes we make in giving and receiving criticism. Now, let's examine how we can give it so that it's effective and productive. First, what is productive criticism?
Productive criticism is communicating information to another person in such a way that they can benefit from it, to use it for their advantage. There are 3 parts to productive criticism. Part 1 is what you do before the criticism. Part 2 is what you do when you are criticizing the person. And Part 3 is what you do after you have criticized the person.
Before giving the criticism, ask yourself what specific behavior you want to change. Then ask yourself if this behavior can be changed. If it can't be changed, you're wasting your time. And finally, ask yourself if this is the appropriate physical and emotional environment to give your criticism. By the way, it's inappropriate to give criticism in front of other people. Do it in private or on neutral ground.
As I see it, Betsy concentrates on copy and forgets all about the visual impact. I know she can do better. Hi, Betsy. Do you have a minute to discuss your layout? Good. Let's meet in the conference room. I think you're concentrating so much on copy. The visual part's getting lost in the shuffle. I feel the look of the page is confusing. Now, I like the copy a lot. There's no problem with that. What do you think?
I think you're right. Sometimes I try so hard on the copy, I forget what it'll look like. Let me try it again.
All right. Let me know when you're through, and we'll take another look.
Good.
Now that was much more productive, wasn't it? Here's what to do when giving criticism. There are 3 things to remember.
First, use I statements. These are statements that begin with words like, in my opinion, or I feel, or it seems to me. Next, ask for feedback. Attempt to get some response. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Finally, commit yourself. Be supportive and offer alternatives that are positive and reasonable. Now, let's examine a situation where some productive criticism is given.
Hi, Susan. This is Joe. Are you sitting down? Well, I'm afraid I got some bad news for you. Well, we're not going to be able to make delivery on that Miller order.
You better come over and tell me about it, Joe.
Okay.
It's part of Joe's responsibility to make sure orders get delivered on time. And this isn't the first time we've had problems. But before criticizing Joe, I had to do my homework. I had to find out the whole story so I could target the behavior I wanted to change and plan my strategy.
Jeff's company can't deliver on time. It'll hold up the whole order. Now, I try to do the best I can, but these tight schedules just keep messing up our delivery dates.
After thinking about it and listening carefully, I decided that procrastination was Joe's major problem.
And there's nothing we can do. We'll just have to call Miller and tell him the bad news.
Remember to use I statements when criticizing someone. I statements acknowledge that the criticism is subjective. Then there's room for dialogue. It seems to me we've had trouble in this area before, Joe. I feel we have more trouble with deliveries than we should.
I admit we've been having some delivery problems lately, but I don't know what I could have done to avoid this one. That was really out of my control.
Next, I try to get feedback from the person I'm criticizing to see if they agree with my perceptions. I also like to be sure they've heard me correctly. Since you brought it up, let me ask you something about the control. When you called to check on the Miller delivery, was there any time to do anything about it?
I guess there was. I called about 3 weeks ago, and Jeff said everything was fine, but he should have called me before the roof fell in.
He probably should have, but he didn't. By not following through, your choices get much more limited. Calling Jeff again would have left you with plenty of options, don't you think?
Yeah, I guess. I probably should have called Jeff earlier. But what now?
Once my point has been made, I don't belabor it. Lengthy and repeated criticism makes the other person tune out. Well, I'll call Miller about the delay, but I think you and I ought to change our communication system. Got any suggestions? I always try to help resolve a situation. Sometimes that takes a bit of time and energy, but at least the other person knows I'm concerned.
Maybe if we could set up a checkpoint system, one that would work for all orders. Then, if something came up, I could always call in and we'd have no problem getting in touch with them.
Okay. You've seen what to do when giving criticism. Now, the last thing is what to do after you've given it.
There are 3 things to do after giving criticism. First, follow through. Second, be supportive. Show that you care enough to help the other person in any way you can.
Finally, reward a behavior change, no matter how small. And a reward can be as simple as a verbal pat on the back.
After I've criticized someone, I always follow through. Behavior can take a while to change, and it's important to be supportive. Hi, Betsy.
Hi, Sam.
Just thought I'd check on the status of that ad. How's it going?
All right. I think it's a lot better now. Visually, I mean.
Well, that's great. Let's see it. Much better. In fact, good enough to show the client. She's coming in this afternoon, and we could show her this ahead of schedule. Would you like to be there at 2:30 to help present your concept?
As we've seen, there are 3 parts in giving productive criticism. First, before giving criticism, zero in on the specific behavior you want to change. Be certain it can be changed, and choose the appropriate time and place to try to change it.
Second, when giving criticism, use I statements. Ask for feedback and commit yourself to share in the resolution.
Third, after giving criticism, follow through, be supportive, and reward any changes that occur.
And finally, a brief word about how to take criticism productively. Remember, the criticism may or may not be valid. It's your job to evaluate it.
Usually, when we're criticized, we get so defensive it's hard to listen. There are 3 rules to follow when receiving criticism.
First, be sure you hear and understand what's being said. Ask for specific examples to help you clarify what you're hearing. Second, ask for help, if you need to, in developing alternative solutions. And finally, summarize what you heard so you know you heard it correctly.
So now, by using some of Dr. Weisinger's techniques, you know how to give and receive criticism productively. Try it. With practice, you'll soon see how much it benefits you.
Certainly was an interesting film. How come you're so quiet?
Oh, I was just thinking. Not about the film, I mean. I was thinking about that argument we had on the freeway. Do you think I was out of line?
Why do you ask?
I'm sorry for coming unglued. I guess my criticism wasn't very productive.
Well, I wasn't much help either as far as that goes. I'm sorry for jumping all over you. I mean, anybody could miss a turn now and then, right?
That's right.
So how about some real productive criticism now?
What do you mean?
Well, we just missed the on-ramp to the freeway.
Oh. Well, nobody's perfect.
All your comments about the 80s crack me up. The worrying about test tube babies. Good times. 1980s. I remember them very well. I was in college and in high school in the 80s. Okay, what do we got? So many things. There's so many different things we're learning about today. I love it. Let's learn about how roses are made. Enjoy.
A better product at a afford. It begins with growers throughout the world cross and recross rose strains, striving for the ultimate combination of strength, disease resistance, vigor, color, and form. First, the pollen is collected from the chosen male parent. The next step is to remove the stamens of the seed parent to make certain that the bloom does not pollinate itself. Then the pollen from the male is dusted onto the stigmas of another flower. When cross-fertilization is completed, each bloom is identified with a code number. All data on the progress of the cross must be painstakingly recorded. The bloom is covered to protect it from accidental pollination. If cross-pollination proves successful, the seed apples, or hips, swell into seeds. Now discarded because they fail to measure up to rigid standards. A hybridizer may make 10,000 crosses with no guarantee that any will succeed. Not more than one or two goal, a chance to compete for the All-America Rose Selections Award. To produce a rose capable of meeting these standards takes at least 6 to 8 years. In 1938, a group of leading growers dedicated to bringing better roses to the gardens of America founded All-America Rose Selections. Official test gardens were established throughout the nation. Today, your roses are studied by experts in 25 such gardens in the widest possible variations of soil and climate in the United States. At the Hartford, Connecticut trial station, Everett Peaster works as one of the 22 impartial experts who help to pick the great roses of the future. Over a period of 2 years, he scores every variety many times on 13 different characteristics under a uniform point system. What does he look for? Quantity of bloom, all-season flowering, and hardiness rate high. Other important qualities include form and fragrance, color in every stage, firmness, and texture of the petal. But will the rose that passes in Connecticut with flying and exquisite colors succeed in the dry heat of Texas? That's the question for the Texas gardens to discover. Here, Judge Eldon Lyle is testing for fragrance. A maximum point count on that would be 7. Vigor rates 12 points, foliage 10, and so on. A perfect rose would score 105 points. And what of the rose that does well in Texas and Connecticut, but not at the Oregon station? West Coast examinations may reveal weaknesses that were not apparent elsewhere. In Portland, a new rose must pass the keen scrutiny of veteran judge Fred Edmonds. His evaluations, along with those of the 24 other stations, are compiled by the National Rose Jury. To rate the All-America Rose Selection Award demands high scores in every test category. Since 1938, only 43 out of thousands of varieties tested have won this coveted designation. In 1951, none of the trial varieties could meet All-America standards, and no award was given. However, if a rose does win, a mere code number becomes a world-famous name. This label carries the name of your rose and is your guarantee of the best. The All-America testing system has removed the element of chance for the amateur gardener. With this label, you can be sure. Here are some famous All-America Award winners. Charlotte Armstrong introduced in 1941 an all-climate, long-stemmed hybrid tea with rich cerise blooms about 5 inches across. K.T. Marshall, a 1944 winner, was named for the wife of the famous general. A vigorous grower, its blooms are a never-fading coral pink, suffused with yellow. Peace appeared on the American scene as a symbol of hope in the year 1946. The huge 6 to 7 inch blooms change color from yellow to pale gold to cream. Rubaiyat was the unchallenged winner in 47, a hardy, long-stemmed rose with large, rich, light red flowers and a lovely fragrance. 1948 introduced the fragrant Diamond Jubilee. The 6-inch blooms are a warm, glowing buff orange with a touch of orange yellow at the base of each petal. The same year produced 2 exquisite red roses, Nocturne and San Fernando. The dark crimson red of Nocturne Dito is an intense scarlet hybrid tea. The long-lasting flower holds its fragrance until the last petal. Fashion, a 1950 winning Floribunda, introduced an entirely new color in roses, luminous coral pink, suffused with gold. 50 also presented 3 hybrid tea winners. Mission Bells, a hardy plant, produces full salmon pink blooms up to 5 inches across. Capistrano reaches a height of 4 feet in most climates. The large bloom presents a glowing rose-pink array of 36. Heavily tinted bloom of Sutter's Gold is a deep yellow, with rich shadings of gold shot with red. Its fragrance is unusually pronounced. Time was when prize roses like these could be grown only by professional experts. Modern science has given the rose your home. This large bloom has 50 yellow petals penciled with pink. A 1952 winner, it was created by and named for the late Fred Howard, the famous rosarian. 1952 also produced Vogue, a cherry coral floribunda with immense clusters of perfectly formed, high-centered blooms. It's a spectacular rose, sweet-smelling, radiant, and vigorous. The third 1952 award went to Helen Traubel, a large apricot pink hybrid tea, an exceptionally strong grower in every section of the country. In 1953, the honors were even. Both a floribunda and a hybrid tea claimed the coveted All-America Award. Ma Perkins is the floribunda, an enchanting, sparkling coral pink. Chrysler Imperial is a breathtaking crimson red hybrid tea. Both received extremely high scores. Lilibet was one of 3 chosen in 1954. It's a floribunda of delicate dawn pink, named in honor of the childhood nickname of Britain's Queen. Its fragrance is spicy and its foliage bronze green. Mojave, a hybrid tea, is a brilliant apricot orange reminiscent of the startling hues of the painted desert. The glowing orange England's monarch was again honored in 1955 with Queen Elizabeth, the first winning grandiflora in history. Rare beauty, large clusters of flowers, and long stems made it a most significant discovery. Jiminy Cricket, a distinguished descendant of fashion, brought another variation of the coral color strain. This brilliant coral orange floribunda is a fine year-round grower, combining beauty and utility in true all-America style. Third of the triumvirate was Tiffany, whose texture and color suggest the dignity and richness of precious stones. The high scent, the award-winning rose for 1956, is a highly The rose has been man's favorite since the dawn of recorded history. And today, 30 million American gardeners have made roses a part of their homes throughout the United States. The climax of the rose year comes on that day of days when it introduces the year's best roses to the public. Since 1940, in each year save one, at least one rose hybridizer has witnessed the fruition of his work and hope, as his rose is acclaimed nationally from the Golden Gate to Rockefeller Center. So when you're ready for planting next fall or spring, look for the All-America Rose Selections label. It's the hallmark of quality in roses.
So rose hybridizer, sandhog, ham smeller. Those are jobs. Exciting careers. Let's go to a craft festival in rural North Carolina.
This is a box of wildflowers, ferns, all sorts of things collected from nature, and you'd be amazed what can be done with them. We're going to have somebody show us some things that can be done, and she's Bertha Smith from Tryon, North Carolina. And Bertha, first of all, what do you call this artwork that you're doing?
Well, my name for this is pressed flowers or pressed flora, because I use leaves, grasses, and all sorts of things.
But it does have a Japanese name.
The Japanese name is Oshibana.
Uh-huh. So that both of them the same, really.
Both means the same.
Now, you start with collecting the wildflowers, of course, and then you have to dry them?
They are press dried. I dry between the newspapers, place them between newspapers and under heavy weight until dry, and then that's when they can be used for
And
note cards and
for
whatever.
example, then you have, here's a bunch of, what are these, cosmos?
Orange cosmos.
Uh-huh. And from that came something like this?
Yes, just in our class.
Uh-huh, in your class. And how do you get them on there? What's this stuff?
This is, we use a white glue, any glue that dries clear, and they're to the background, which is a matte board. And this is to be used under glass.
And the glass will protect
Yeah, glass
this.
will protect the flowers, yes.
Well, let's take a look now. I'll put that right on top there at some of the things you've already done. I don't know where to start. Why not start with the big one? Let's bring it back here. Now tell us, this is a little different, isn't it?
Yes, these are placed under contact paper, which is a self-adhesive paper. And you make your arrangement, you reverse paint on this. Your foreground is done first, and then your background you build in, and then it's applied to a matte board.
And then covered with this protective...
No, that's the covering that you have to begin with.
Oh, I see.
And then it can be framed, or glass can be placed over this, or it can be without glass.
I think here's one over here with glass, isn't it?
Well, this is
what is this?
A plastic background
yes.
with the contact paper over.
That's beautiful.
Those are violets, the Confederate and the blue violet.
Just exquisite. And here's one I think must be from nature, just wild,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, this is a trout lily, which is blooming now in the mountains. And I have used the leaf of the Bowman's root.
Oh, I don't
and
even know
also some Queen Anne's lace is added around for just a little addition.
Now what, well here's a colorful one. Oh, this is put onto a plastic?
Yes, it's a little cover you could use for miscellaneous purposes, and I have just added, this is done with contact paper over, of course, over the violets. And this makes a permanent finish.
Now you use rice paper for some things. You know, here's a piece of the rice paper we could look at. It's very thin, isn't it? Oh, there went our glue. All right. Now let's see. What other types of things do you have here? Like this?
Well, this is done with you glue this happens to be ragweed, by the way, and it is just glued down on the note paper, and then a little accent of your India ink drawing, which makes its own individual liking for that.
And here's one that you have put a sort of a little mat arrangement.
This is applied just to your background paper, which is ink drawing paper, and this is just glued on with no covering over it.
Then this one is...
be used with glass over.
This is for note paper?
Yes, this is a note paper idea.
Is that a violet?
No, that's your little hollyhock.
Oh my
goodness.
The
little miniature, I call it the miniature hollyhock. But it retains color very well.
Well, you have to start a year or two ahead to collect all your plants, don't you? So you have things to work with.
Collecting all year, and there is never a time that you can't collect something. Only maybe January and February.
Well, we certainly thank you for sharing this beautiful work with us. It's been a pleasure to see it.
Thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Run good level. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mr. Lauder, to make everything just absolutely magical as far as I'm concerned here, you tell me all of this runs by water.
Yes. The water wheel is 16 feet high, 4 feet wide, and produces 17.5 horsepower.
And are you able to adjust some way how much water goes through?
Yes, we are hooked up with an old buggy wheel that we control the water flow by just a little gate up in the lake.
Oh, I see. And you always have plenty of water?
Have plenty of water.
What
yeah.
feeds your lake?
Springs. It's spring fed.
Oh, boy, that's good enough to drink, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
How in the world did you happen to decide to go into something like this?
Well, it's just something I wanted to do. I've always been interested in water power. And I started out with the water wheel. It was purchased in 1916. It was at the old Hayes Mill on Highway 191. And from there, well, I just got interested in it.
And you gathered more old things and put them together,
Yes, it took me about a year to collect everything. Of course, now I've had quite a bit of help. There's Mr. Suber in Greer, South Carolina, that has a water mill. He come up and helped me. Mr. Silvers at Mars Hill. Mr. Lowing down in Polk County.
Well, you had a lot of interested
And
people.
also, man up above Bavard, Mr. Nicholson, he come down and give me pointers on how to grind and what to do. So,
Well, now, where do you get all the grain that you grind?
well, we buy it from local farmers.
And do you import any, so to speak, from other states?
Yes, our corn is grown locally, but now our wheat and rye, triticale, and all the other grains, well, most of it comes from the Midwestern states.
When a farmer comes in and has some corn to grind, you take a toll, is that what you call it?
Well, we can take toll. We have an old toll box that was used years ago, and 1/8 of a bushel is what
the miller takes.
What the miller got.
And that's
yeah.
what you are, the miller.
Yeah, I'm the miller.
And you've got your family helping you out too, haven't you?
Yes, it's a family affair.
That's good.
Now,
what kind of products do you make here? I know many things.
Well, other than the corn.
You make all these things.
Yes.
We got samples here.
Yes, we grind organic whole wheat flour, hard winter wheat, and also soft wheat for pastry flour. We grind rye flour, triticale, soy, oats, barley, millet, rice.
And you just grind about everything
Well, we
there.
grind just about everything. We also grind wheat, cracked wheat for Biltmore wheat hearts.
Just everything.
In Biltmore, we crack the wheat and also make a baby cereal, which is
an organic baby cereal.
Organic baby cereal.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, you've shown me here one way that you market. How else do you market these things?
Well, we also grind for health food stores.
Oh, I see.
Yes, as far as I know, I'm the only one that's grinding organic grain here. Previous to that, they had to order their grain from New York or out west somewhere.
Do you sell much right here?
We sell quite a bit. Yes, we do.
Well, that's really good.
We also have Miller's Wheat Bran. This we get from a roller mill because we grind whole grain flours.
I see.
And but we have Miller's Bran, triticale bran, soybean bran.
You've got everything from the looks of the shells, everything, and you just readjust a few belts in there and turn the water the right direction, and away you go.
That's right.
Well, this is certainly an interesting enterprise, and looks like a very healthful way of living, too.
Well, we enjoy it. We really do.
We've enjoyed being with you.
Well, I've enjoyed having you.
And we've enjoyed having you. There's a lot of enjoyment at the end of that. Having grown up in North Carolina most of my life, my parents would take me to these craft fairs all over North Carolina. And that one I think was close to Tryon, North Carolina, which is not that far from Hendersonville and Saluda, in the Blue Ridge Parkway area, Blue Ridge Mountains. Yeah, so there was a lot of that. There's also at the State Fair here in Raleigh, there's a pavilion called the Village of Yesteryear, where you can go in and jump into the deep end of arts and crafts from previous times, and they will explain things to you, and you'll get to see demonstrations and all that stuff. And I go from being really bored with stuff like that to being fascinated with it. It kind of depends on how much sugar I had that day. Speaking of sugar, and speaking of caffeine, if you liked what you saw today, and you were intrigued by what you saw, you can go buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/avgeeks, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks. And you can also hit the thumbs up button, or the like button, or the subscribe button. All those things help support our efforts to bring you more 16mm films. So join us tomorrow. We'll be back with more stuff to show you, and we delight in that. And some people are like, you were all over the place today. And that's kind of by design. Sometimes I do theme shows, but a lot of times I like kind of mixing it up. And because there's all sorts of weird connections, and so we saw a film about roses, and then we saw a film about how to press flowers, and then we saw, it's kind of these weird serendipitous things. And so that's the way we kind of run it nowadays. But I appreciate you tuning in, and I appreciate your comments, and we will see you again tomorrow. Everybody take care.